women saying, my inmate did this, my inmate did that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hold up. That rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. Welcome to More Than Inmate's Girlfriend. I'm your host, Jay, and week 2 of 3 of the Pen Pal series. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised at how popular last week's episode was. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, because pen pals is such an important topic in this community, and so many of us have met our loved ones through the pen pal system. But yeah, it was just super popular and got lots of love. So I really think you're going to enjoy this next episode, where we get the incarcerated male perspective of the pen pal relationship. And anybody who's ever worked with people knows that sometimes things change. I'm in a realm of my life right now where I feel that whenever something changes, it's for the best in the long run for all parties. And this is what I felt at certain points of this week. And then enter Dinero. Dinero is the person who we interview this week. And the amount of information, the things that I've learned, the judgments that I've felt, he has answered so many questions, and not only on the pen pal experience. And I'm not going to say anything else because you'll hear it in the episode, but there was definitely some hesitancy on my part on whether I wanted to interview this person. And I'm so glad that I didn't stop, because you need to hear his story. You need to hear his story. So I'll leave it at that. Quick reminders, the gift catalog. Things have changed on the website. If you want to order, you just have to fill in the email and then the full address. Press submit, and then I will get it and I'll be able to send him a free catalog. So if you want that catalog, you just go to morethaninmatesgirlfriend.com, click catalogs, scroll to the bottom, and you can enter in the information. Make sure it's his information. There was quite a few people that were getting things mixed up, so we changed it. So that's it. It's simple, no code, just bam, done. That's awesome. Lots of people are getting their catalogs. Lots of people are asking questions about the ordering. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me at any point. The easiest way is at JAE at morethaninmatesgirlfriend.com or on social media. So Instagram at inmate girlfriend right now, or TikTok at more than an inmates GF. Do not hesitate to contact me about everything. You are talking to me when you reach out. So do not be afraid. I would love to hear anything you have to say, or if you have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate. I am really excited about this project and really excited about the support that I've received. So thank you, honestly, truly. And I think that's it. Next week's episode will be the final of the 3-part series. So make sure you check that one out too. And I will leave in the show notes the book that after this episode, you are most definitely going to want to pick up for yourself and for your loved one. So with that, I will let you listen to Dinero's episode from the male perspective. Enjoy, guys. Hi, Dinero. How are you? Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Jay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. How did you start with the whole pen pal situation? How'd you start writing pen pals?
It's a cliche. People will say, oh, they only write because they want stuff and things like that. And to be honest, we have to be clear. Some of that may have been true. However, for me, there was a deeper reasoning behind reaching out to people. Once you're stripped of your freedom, of your ability to be a part of society's existence, that's what you seek. You seek to be seen. You seek to be away from the walls, the cells, the incarceration. Mm-hmm. And I think that was, for me, the driving force of why I got into seeking pen pals and things like that.
Did someone inside tell you about it?
Yes, I'm going to date myself here. I had pen pals in school.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's never really been a foreign thing to me. However, once you get into it and people are like, oh, you can talk to people here, you can do this, you can get on these websites, you can do this, and you're like, oh, okay. It's more geared towards prison, but it wasn't foreign to me to have a pen pal.
Wow, cool. Do you remember the first person that you wrote when you were incarcerated?
As a pen pal?
Yeah.
I do remember that person. They reached out. However, I think people misunderstand, and in my personal belief, it wasn't to really get to know me. They reached out to express their religious beliefs. And even though I appreciated it because they reached out in a time where I was seeking someone to talk to, I don't think they really reached out to get to know me. They just reached out to spread the word.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And at the time when you started going on this pen pal journey, were you expecting to find meaningful connections, or were you just looking to pass the time?
I had no expectations. I was like, whatever comes, I'm engaged with it.
Okay.
No matter what. And then as I realized who I wanted to be, what I wanted in life, it changed.
Interesting. Did you enjoy the connections and meeting new people? Was it a surprising feeling to feel connected to people that you didn't even know?
Jay, I'm actually glad you asked that. It felt good for people to reach out because it felt like you were being seen. Someone in my position was being noticed. I wasn't excluded from society. I wasn't the pariah. I wasn't the outcast. All of those things. In that vein, it felt absolutely amazing. The flip side to that is some of the interactions were a spectrum of domestic violence. And let me not minimize what goes on in domestic violence, but there was a power dynamic. And it seems weird, but people were taking advantage of those of us who are incarcerated. Wow. And it was like, hold on, man. You want me to sing and dance, jump through hoops, and all of this, but you don't even know me. You're not really trying to get to know me. You're more using me as a decorative piece, as some accessory to your life. And once I started to see that and experience those things, then it became a bad experience.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating to me because I hear about this and I hear people make comments about how women can be really controlling, as if like they expect you to be a certain way and like a puppet. My husband used to say I'm a lapdog.
Absolutely.
And you had that experience as well.
The best way I can illustrate that would be, and I'm going to take it in context outside of the prison dynamic, let's put it in a normal social relationship. If you take someone who is the breadwinner of a relationship, the partner who does not have any income is usually subjugated to that other person. You have to do what I say when I say, or I can turn off the lights, the water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
That is inherently toxic relationship because there's a power imbalance.
Yeah.
And that power imbalance is being exploited so that other person can benefit greatly, while the person who doesn't have anything usually is the loser in that situation. It is applied to prison. There is an extreme power dynamic. I have no liberty, no resources, no way to provide for myself in any meaningful way. And I'm not saying that we are not appreciative of the things that are done. Yeah. I'm saying when it's to an extreme where you have people who are going, if you don't do X, I won't do this. Or if you don't do this, I won't do this. Now I'm mad at you and I'm not going to X, Y, Z. That is the severest form of mental torture you can ever possibly encounter.
Wow. How often do you find that happens?
Oh, wow. That happens pretty regularly.
Really?
Like, I've experienced it a few times and I've seen it. Now I'm able to actually identify people who engage in that behavior and I cut them off quick. However, I see a lot of people around me who actually deal with that, who are stressed out all the time, who are literally, when I say literally, one instance from engaging in violence, self-destructive behavior, and all this. And I'm saying those are choices on that individual. However, when you're in this environment and someone is stressing you out to the point where you have no recourse, you're literally looking for an escape. And that escape is going to the shoe or the hole or segregated housing, whatever. That's not a good thing to be dealing with when you're in these environments.
Dinero, I'm shook right now.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Why?
Because I never really thought about this. Here I am thinking on the outside, everyone's talking about getting scammed by all these guys.
Of course.
We never think about it from the other side. And now it all makes sense why you wrote a book.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, there are scammers. There are people in prison. And again, the onus is not on just the person in prison. You can't just blame the person in prison. Because if you reach out to people in prison, if you're investing your time, energy, and money in someone, but you have not taken the time to figure out who that person is, blame yourself. You can't blame everybody else. you blame yourself.
Yeah.
The same if we were in the free world and hypothetically you moved someone in and they were a freeloader, they didn't work, they didn't do anything. Who are you? You're not going to blame him. You blame yourself. You didn't take the time to evaluate who that individual was. You don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, people in here lie, they manipulate, they scam. It comes from both ways. It's not just one-sided.
Absolutely. Okay. I wanted to talk about relationships. Do people try and jump into relationships right away? Do you find when you were signing up for a pen pal that you were signing up for a pen pal or you were signing up for a dating site?
Now, oh man. See, even personally for me, I'm not looking for a relationship. And I say that because I build connections and I'm looking for platonic relationships that grow into things. But romantic relationships will happen organically. The problem is a lot of people from an incarceration standpoint are looking for a support system. That's not always financial. That may be mentally, emotionally, resource-wise, helping to execute, doing things, whether it's starting businesses, getting legal advice, whatever. So in turn, that's a business transaction. However, when you meet people and you start to vibe with that person, things happen, right?
Yeah.
You're like, damn, I didn't know this person was this cool. I didn't know this person was this amazing. I didn't know this person was like this or like that. Relationships happen. And me personally, I didn't go in looking for relationships. I've had a few, and they didn't necessarily work out. Again, some of my mistakes, some of my other people, but those were learned lessons, and you move forward. However, for the most part, you should be evaluating the person you're talking to, period, before you can say anything about your desires, wants, or needs. You should be trying to identify who the person is. Are they a good person? Are they respectable? Do they have integrity? All of those things. And then after those identifications, then you can say a relationship or whatever.
Yeah. Do you think that it's possible to have a platonic relationship with a pen pal incarcerated? Or
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. I have had, because people grow apart. Now, a lot of people have a tendency to want to hold on to relationships. Relationships you don't always hold on to. Maybe that person was dealing with something mentally, emotionally, and they needed the support of a friend to carry them through. I have platonic friends that I communicate with and that I enjoy because they see me for me. They don't judge me. They talk to me. They communicate with me. They treat me as if I'm still of the world. Not that I'm incarcerated. They still treat me as if I'm of the world. And I enjoy that. And I treat a lot of them like family because that's what they've become. And then some platonic relationships, like she was a good friend, and me and her had fell out. And we fell out because we just outgrew each other.
Right.
And not there was evil or anger or anything like that. It's that her life began a different trajectory and mine did as well. And it was a great friendship. It's nothing wrong with it.
So you talked about vetting people to make sure that their intentions and their integrity are right before you invest your time and energy into someone. What do you mean by that, and how do people do that?
So speaking from someone who is incarcerated first, you have to set aside your desires, needs, and wants. And this is part of the reason why I wrote my book, Meet 'em, Knock 'em, Keep 'em, How to Start and Maintain Relationships While in Prison. A lot of guys go into these situations, and I say guys because I'm in a predominantly male institution and I haven't experienced what women are like inside incarceration, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm alienating anyone. A lot of people incarcerated have a tendency because they think of what I need and what I want. And don't get me wrong, in these environments, they don't provide anything for you, so you have to find it somewhere. However, when you eliminate that from your pursuit of making connections, you start to see genuine connections in people. You start to see who they truly are. You have to take the time and ask questions to identify their goals, to identify their beliefs, to identify who they are as a person. Because, believe it or not, you might not like this person.
Right.
They may give you money, but that don't mean you like them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people conflate those two things. So then you're in a bad situation because you're doing whatever you need to for the money, but you're talking or associating or communicating with someone you don't like. So that's a bad situation. And then from the pen pal side of it, a lot are superficial. They go, well, let me see what that guy's in jail for. I don't want to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to break the news to you. A lot of things that people are incarcerated for are not reflective in the person they are.
Yeah.
A crime is a pigeonhole on a sheet that they use to get a person incarcerated. Now, when you speak to people and evaluate them, yes, you already say you're in jail. That's perfect. You're incarcerated. I know this about you. You can't hide it. However, the same people who communicate, they go, oh, well, he's only in jail for robbery or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's a drug addict. He's engaged in some questionable behavior inside of prison, all of these things. And people overlook it and go, well, he's in jail for a bank robbery, or he's in jail as a gang member. Oh, it's attractive. And you're like, but that's a questionable person, period. Not about what he's in jail for. I'm saying the individual is questionable.
Dinero, this is such an important topic to highlight, and I'm so glad you brought this up. Do you know how many times I'm like, just because he was a gang member, he was still a high risk to society. You guys have these levels sometimes in there, and I'm like, it doesn't mean that what you did was better than another thing. You still did something bad. It seems like people are like, oh, it's fine, he just did a robbery. No, he still did a robbery. He still needs to rehabilitate. There are still problems here.
Absolutely.
And people tend to say certain things are okay and other things are not. And it drives me crazy because I'm like, all of them are not okay. That doesn't mean that we get to judge that person, but we don't get to justify and say, oh, well, he just unalived someone with a pew-pew instead of a knife. And you're like, okay, they still did something very wrong and need rehabilitation and need to take accountability. Man, this is a topic. Can you tell it gets me heated?
I can tell.
Yeah. You had such an elegant way of saying it, way better than I did. So I appreciate that because you're right. And I'm glad that you're highlighting that because it's important not to judge someone just by what that crime has been classified as.
As a society, you have to understand there's causative factors that precipitate crime. Crime is not okay, period. Mm-hmm. Whatever crime it is, it's not okay. That is the reason for the removal from society. So once we stop differentiating, oh, they did this crime, but not that, they're all crimes. Yeah. Let's stop that.
Yeah.
They're all crimes.
Thank you.
There's a lot of social and historical factors that go into this that it's made people commit crimes. Mm-hmm. Now, the question that people should be asking when reaching out to someone who is incarcerated is, what is the work you've done? How do you still view the same behavior that got you incarcerated? Because this is what I mean when people say, oh, they're scammers, they're this, they're that, they're this. Don't give them money because that's all they want you for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I reached out to someone incarcerated and that person was still engaged in criminal activities, getting high, still manipulating and swindling for money, when that person got out and I expected that person to be something different, I lied to myself for that entire time.
Wow. Dinero, I'm so impressed with you. Was there a reason why you started the book? Was there a key moment?
Okay, so personally for me, the friend that I was telling you about who we grew apart, she sent me some information one day. And it was how people, women specifically, see men in prison and abuse the men in prison. And I was like, what? At first, for me, it was kind of new. I'm like, abuse? How could you abuse me, right?
Yeah.
Then I started to see women saying, my inmate did this. My inmate did that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hold up. That rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm not someone's inmate, right? And it wasn't about me specifically. It more had to go with the idea or belief that we were like a marionette puppet.
Yeah.
Or like some sort of accessory. Like we weren't human. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I said, this is crazy right here. Mm-hmm. So as I sat there and evaluated all of the printouts and things she sent me, reading the comments, seeing how people really viewed us, like, oh, if my inmate don't do this, I don't send him money. If he don't do this, and et cetera, I was blown away. So I sat in here, now knowing this new information that I had, and then watching guys pursue pen pals, watching guys get in fights over the same woman messaging multiple people, all of these things. And I'm like, bro, this is getting out of hand. This is literally getting to a point where it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's no longer what it's designed for, human interaction. So I said, some of that is on us too, because we're accepting it. And I say us as those incarcerated, we're accepting it because we haven't taken the time to say, who am I and what do I want? And that's part of the first step to meeting someone in my book. The book is broken down in 3 steps: meet them, knock them, and keeping them. The meet them section is just that. First, you have to identify who you are and what you want. Because if you don't know who you are and what you want, how can you meet something and sustain it? You don't even know what you're seeking if you don't know what you want.
This book sounds amazing. Everybody needs this book.
Yes, and I wrote it for people who are incarcerated.
Right.
But it's not for people who are incarcerated. Because those who are seeking incarceration, pen pals, can read it to understand exactly what you should be identifying in the person that you want to communicate with. Wow. Love after lockup.
Yeah.
I hear so many stories about that where they're like, oh, the guy came home and he left her and he did this and he went with this person, he went with that person. But for 2 to 5 to 7 years, however long that individual communicated with that prisoner or that person who experienced incarceration, they told you who they were the entire time.
Yeah.
They told you they were a criminal. They told you they were still going to live this way. You'd ignored it. And then when that person came home and said, hey, this is who I am, who I've been telling you, I've been getting high the whole time, I've been lying, cheating, stealing the entire time. So now when I'm home and I'm showing you who I am, you're upset.
Yeah. Wow. And what's the second part?
Now, the second part is knock 'em. And knock 'em is because, believe it or not, a lot of people in here had a misconception. They operated off toxic masculinity. If I had nice cars, if I had bravado, if I had social status, if I was more gangster than the next guy. And believe it or not, in the criminal underworld, this is how you met partners, found sexual partners, women, men, whatever. The status is usually what brought them. The status, the tools, all of that. Well, in prison, there is none of that. You have to communicate with an individual. So in that section, it's teaching people how to be different and how to separate yourself from the sea of other people attempting to communicate with pen pals and all of that.
Wow.
It's teaching people how to listen. It's teaching people how to show interest. It's teaching people how to be an integral part in that correspondence instead of just trying to be like a fly on the wall or just be that, well, I'm here, you should accept me. That doesn't work in here.
So how to differentiate yourself.
Absolutely. There's elements of cognitive behavioral therapy in there, teaching people how to improve themselves, educate themselves, improve upon who they are. The reality is, even if you was in the free world, if you're not looking for a partner that's equally yoked as you, coming into the relationship, you shouldn't want that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're not in prison rehabilitating yourself, changing who you are, making yourself into the best possible position to be successful upon your release,
Mm-hmm.
then realistically, why would you be talking to me?
Yeah.
Those are red flags for me now. If I'm telling you I'm in here and I'm getting high and I'm just hanging out and I'm stabbing this guy and beating this guy up and doing all these things, and you're like, oh, I love you and I can't wait for you to come home. I'm like, the hell are you talking about?
Good point. And then number 3.
The third part is keeping them, how to keep and maintain the relationship. Now, whether it's platonic or romantic, you have to invest in that relationship. And even for me, prior to my incarceration, and I don't shy away from the person I was, and I say I was because I've done the work. I've done the work to change who I was. I've done the work to shift that. Mm-hmm. Prior to my incarceration, I was engaged in human trafficking. I didn't care about anybody else. All I cared about was self.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my relationships with the people who truly know me and are still around through my incarceration, they see the difference because I'm no longer out for self. In my relationships, I'm catering to the other person. And I'm catering to the other person not for what I can gain. I'm catering for the excitement and the joy of seeing that person enrich themselves. And the reciprocity comes from that because now people enjoy being around me.
Right.
People are like, oh, this is a good dude. I like talking with him. I like being around him. He sees this, he sees that, and he listens. And 90% of that, the reason why I had to write this section of keep them was to illustrate to people in prison how you can be an effective listener and how you can be an actual component to someone's life, even from in prison. You don't have to physically be there. You don't have to pay or contribute rent or all of that. sometimes people just want to vent to you and
Yeah.
talk to you and say, hey, this is what I've been dealing with. This is what I'm going through, blah, blah, blah. To be the sounding board for someone else. And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, sometimes that's all you can give, right? So you can't sit here and go, oh, man, I wish I can do this. I want to do that. No. Sometimes you got to accept your position in life and say, hey, let me be the best at it. And in that section, I wanted to show how that's possible. I think we discussed it. You and Nick have dealt with it also.
Mm.
Because I've done this, and I've been in these positions where I have business endeavors I want to complete, and I'm like, hey, I need this done, I need that done. And the person you're communicating with is like, hey, buddy, you need to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I'm exhausted, I'm overworked.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we don't get that because in here, our time is so structured. We're like, oh, I can get stuff done. How is it that you don't have time?
Mm-hmm.
But the world is moving at a different pace than it is in the incarceral setting. So for us, we have to say, hold on, let me pause for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be receptive and listen to what this person is dealing with. And let's communicate about what time they have available, when can they do things,
Mm-hmm.
how can they do things, what is too much, what is me not asking enough. And if you fail to communicate, which is essential to this, then you would never know.
Yeah.
Because you would think, oh, I'm not doing anything. And the other person is like, oh, you're stressing me out.
Yeah. Nick and I, it was real bad at one point. That guy, he could have a list a mile long. So now we do Thursdays where all the people that I work with on different things, they know, don't even try. I don't schedule interviews. I don't schedule calls. On Thursdays, it's my day to work on Nick's stuff and whatever I can accomplish on that Thursday. Yeah. And then he can prepare. So then Thursday morning, we have a business meeting where it's like, hey, what do you need done? What's your priority list of today? And then let's see what we can do. And that way he's not chasing or waiting for me to get stuff accomplished on different days. And we just do what we can on Thursday for him.
In that section, communication is highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
How to discuss things, how to fight fairly. People think fighting is a bad thing. Conflict is great for relationships because when you get past conflicts, you literally have created rapport and have grown that relationship to another level, like legit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right. I think we've grown a lot in the past couple years.
Absolutely.
Getting through that, and you're right, maintaining and building those relationships and trying to also just focus on different things. It can't always be about business. Even though I want to talk about it, he wants to talk about it all the time, then it just becomes a business relationship. And we're like, hey, wait, we're married, you know? And that's hard in itself.
Yeah, I've dealt with that, Jay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where someone is like, hey, every time you call, and I'm like, it's not every time I call. We're just doing so much that in between the conversations is always, hey, did you remember to do that? Did you do that? Did you do this? Or they're telling me so-and-so said that or this, and you're like, okay. It becomes like, is this just business? And that's part of what that section discusses.
That's awesome.
How to communicate, how to harmonize, how to listen, how to be affectionate, how to press pause on the business and to actually be present in the relationship, whether it's platonic or whether it's romantic. And then I had a world-renowned psychologist, a marriage and clinical psychologist named Daniel P. Epler. He helped me write a section, but he gave me 3 T's for fair fighting. He gave me how to communicate. He gave me how to use listening techniques, how not to snip or fight at each other. And I put all of his stuff in there because this is what he does. And he was like, look, man, you're writing a great book. And he was like, I would be honored if you put some of this. I said, man, I got you. I'm honored that you allowed me to use it.
For real.
Yeah.
You have sold me. I wish Nick had read this before I met him. I think our lives would have been a lot easier. And I think we were blessed. Nick and I's relationship was blessed in a lot of ways because we stayed pen pals for so long and before our relationship developed. But a lot of people just don't do that. And I think it's important that people are reading what you're writing because you've really broken it down really well. And although you said it was designed for incarcerated individuals, it really is across the board. Anybody could read it because equally we need to know this information.
That's the highlight because it's like getting the other team's playbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it make you more competitive? Absolutely. Would you consider it cheating in a competitive sport? Yeah. But this isn't a competitive sport.
Yeah.
This is an environment where information and knowledge is key. And if I'm allowing someone into my life, I want to know that person is not the same person they were. And I say that because if I'm investing in you as an individual and I want to see you successful, because those are the only people I want around me. If you don't want to see me successful, and I'm not talking about rich and famous, I'm talking about living a quality life where I'm not in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to see me successful, you're not going to cultivate an atmosphere where you think it's okay if I engage in negative behaviors, if I got to do certain things that are outside of my personal level of integrity and conduct and all of those things. Why would you reward that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. And that tells me if it's okay. If you're walking around with bravado, like, for example, in my situation, if somebody goes, yeah, Dinero had to stab somebody, I'm going to miss him, he's in the hole, but I'm holding him down. You're rewarding me for stupidity.
Yeah.
That's not coming home.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new charge. That's an extended stay. And I'm still engaged in destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is this your first book?
No, I've been working on a cascading project that illustrates my entire life. In my first book, like I told you, I'm in jail for human trafficking and all of that. So my first book I wrote had to do with my criminality. It had to do with me engaging in pimping behavior, with me negative, with me all of that. And the reason why I illustrated and wrote that book was because I needed people to see who I was. If you didn't know me as a person and you just think I'm doing all of this stuff, you might think, oh, he doesn't have any life experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the first book was geared towards life experience. The second book, which is Meet 'em, Knock 'em, Keep 'em, was geared towards where I'm currently at. And when I wrote this book, I want to say in 22,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was. I was in this stage of my life. Just recently, I completed a book. It's a rehabilitative curriculum called Heat's Impact, Human Exploitation and Trafficking Stoppage, Influencing Motivated, Positive, and Constructive Thoughts. It's a rehabilitative curriculum, 36-week curriculum, and it's geared towards rehabilitating people who've committed crimes of human trafficking, pimping, fraud, all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a poetry book that I'm working on, and it should be done either next year or the year after that. I'm just cleaning some stuff up and working through a few of these poems that got me stuck. But the reason why I'm doing that is because I want people to see where I started and where I ended. And now, the way I see life, the way I walk, the way I talk, the way I move, you realize that was the wrong way to live.
Yeah.
And when you've done the work, when you've seen the insight, when you've seen the impact, when you realize what got you to a point where you thought it was okay to misuse, mistreat, and abuse somebody for your own personal gain, you realize that ain't something to be proud of. That ain't something to carry around with you and go, oh, yeah, I did that. Like, I didn't do anything. I was an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So I have to tell you, when I first came across your name and we were chatting and then I looked you up and I saw the charge and I was like, okay. And I'm like, that's a pretty, yeah. So I talked to Nick about it and I was like, I don't know that I want to promote someone who has this charge, but at the same time, I don't want to judge people and I don't know the circumstances. And I read his habeas and it doesn't talk a lot about it because it's on something different. So there's not a lot of conversation about that charge. So I'm like evaluating the situation and talking to the girl who referenced you. And I'm like, I don't know what I should do. And then she went back and talked to her contact who'd introduced her to you. And she was like, oh, but he's been doing all this work on human trafficking and organizations and giving back and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I'm really glad that looking up your charge didn't stop me from having this interview, because not only have you touched on really important topics in the pen pal world, but just in general on rehabilitation and what that looks like. But I'm curious as to what made you change your path. Was it the incarceration itself, or was there something that happened that you were like, I need to change the way I'm thinking?
For me, incarceration was a catalyst. During my incarceration, I had what's called a Franklin hearing. And in that Franklin hearing, they go back into your life, deep into your life. And you see some of the things that kind of led you down the road of destruction.
Okay.
So for me, I had abandonment issues. My mom, she'd left me when I was a kid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was raised by a family. And you start to go, okay, shit, this is a lot of stuff. So when I had the Franklin hearing, I found out that my mom was a victim of sexual assault as a kid. My mom was in prostitution. My mom, and I'm like, holy shit. This has been a constant recurring thing, and no one has broke the cycle.
Wow.
So I said, I got to be the one to break the cycle. I can't say I know now and continue to engage in the same behavior because it's not okay. And a lot of people go, well, what if you have a daughter? What if you have this? And the rationale for me, people don't like it, but in that, the rationale for me was, as a parent, if I'm not doing my job, educating my child, making sure that child is not fall victim to the streets, then I failed as a parent. I can't be upset about what the child does. I failed as a parent. I can't be upset. Oh, you're out there doing prostitution, you're out there doing that. But if I failed as a parent, I need to be mad at myself.
Right.
So I tell people I have to engage in the behavior that shows my child the right way to live. It's not enough to say, don't do X. Don't engage in X. Don't be like this. I have to say, let me show you the correct way to live your life. And for me, that was changing my behavior because I couldn't continue to promote the negativity. I couldn't continue to say that that was okay. Even now, because people know who I am, I wasn't some unknown individual. So when people go, hey, what's up, Dinero? And they want to talk about pimping or talk about that, I go, hey, bro, I don't even want to talk about that because that's ignorance. Everything you're saying is ignorant. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, you don't make any sense. You can't convince me what you're saying. It's rational.
Wow. Incredible.
I used to make music years ago, and I quit making music because a lot of the music was negative. So now I don't even promote or do that anymore either.
Wow.
I don't even want to engage in that because I know where it came from. I know how I got there, thinking it was okay to engage in this behavior, right? So why would I help someone else get to that same point?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What have you done while inside to rehabilitate, other than write your books?
I've attended Criminal Gangs Anonymous, several cognitive behavioral therapy groups. The list goes on as far as things of that nature. I've went to college.
Yeah.
I've obtained several associate degrees from Bakersfield College. I am a renegade. Go Renegades. I'm about to graduate from San Diego State University.
Incredible.
I am an Aztec. I'm going to graduate with honors May 21st, which is a great thing, with a bachelor's degree.
Amazing.
Outside of that, I've engaged in several outside groups that come in and all of that. Most recently, I've been attempting to work with the administration at Centinela State Prison, which has been a very hard task, trying to run an art auction where several inmates have donated art pieces to me, and we were going to auction the art off, donate all the money to Saving Innocence, which is a nonprofit organization that helps people who have been victims of human trafficking and things like that.
Wow.
The administration has been fighting me nonstop, so I haven't been able to really get that done, but that is my goal. I'm an advocate for the elimination of human trafficking. I've done a lot of research in that shows that it's not something that society needs to accept.
Right.
And believe it or not, I'm all for OnlyFans, things of that nature, because it eliminates the black market avenue of that. You have to be an adult. You have to be of sound mind. You can't just set it up. No one can force you. I do think there needs to be some guardrails and institutional changes as far as like maybe monthly or quarterly mental health evaluations and things like that that go into some of the actors and actresses that perform on those sites. But we need to eliminate human trafficking. We need to eliminate sexual exploitation because that's a stain on society. Slavery is a stain on society. So
absolutely,
you got to look at it like those who hurt people. I was hurt and I was hurting people. I no longer hurt, so I don't desire to hurt people.
And what is your future looking like with the book that you just wrote? What do you hope to do with that? And then what other endeavors are you working on right now?
The Heat's Impact, my curriculum and workbook, it should be up later this year. What I'm looking to do is actually get those groups ran throughout the incarcerated system in the state of California. That's my first goal.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking into write grant and things like that so I can try and get the group ran, at least on an institutional level. However, at a state level would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can combat some of the human trafficking issues and all that. I just attended the San Diego State University Symposium and presented this in my curriculum as a symposium in the S3 Symposium that just passed in February. So that was a big thing for me, and I enjoyed it. So what I'm looking to do is just get that off the ground, advocate more, and affect some change to where we can stop glorifying this ignorance and realizing that we are engaged in this behavior because there's a lot of social and systemic issues that we're not addressing, and we're ignoring it and still engaged in these behaviors.
Mm-hmm. And then the clothing brand?
Oh, my clothing brand, Sweat Team, something I put together. Me, my cousin, and a friend of ours, we put it together. It's a symbol of hard work, dedication. So what we're trying to do is just create a movement. I'm even talking with them. A lot of them, they're changing the way they do music. They're changing the way they operate in a sense because they hear me and they like, well, Brad's doing it, obviously. If he's doing it, obviously there's something wrong with what we've been doing. Because I'm at a point, and I'm not perfect, and I want to be clear about that. I'm not perfect. I have my moments to where I'm frustrated with society, my situation, with world, and I'm like, I just hate this so much. However, I persevere, I work hard, and I continue to reflect and grow because I know that given the opportunity, I want to be successful. I want people to speak about me and say, not he was a criminal or he was hood rich or he was a ghetto celebrity. Nah, I want people to say he had a positive impact on his community. He did some things right. He may have had some flaws, but he did things right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want.
I can tell you that I am so grateful that I overlooked the initial view of what you had done. And I'm so grateful that I was given this opportunity to actually talk to you because today you've been able to highlight so many things, not only about your book and how important it is and how so many people need to pick it up, but also about your circumstances and how you change them and that it is possible. So I thank you for giving me that opportunity. And I thank you for showing me once again that people are so much more than the crime that they have listed on the paper, and that we need to take that time to get to know someone before we make those judgments. So thank you, really.
Absolutely. Jay, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and your words mean more than you can imagine. I promise you they do, because that means the work is being done.
Yeah.
The work is being done. That's what that means. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Every time someone who reaches out to me and says, well, I've seen this, but I still wanted to reach out, and when they talk to me, they're like, you're such a dope person, and that means more to me than anything anyone could ever do for me, say for me, because that means I'm doing the work. The work is being noted.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine how proud you must be of yourself to have gone through the life that you've gone through and be who you are today. That's such a testament. So we'll keep in touch.
I appreciate you and Nick. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Big F, I appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.